Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're journeying into some ancient wisdom that really challenges our assumptions, about faith. And it kind of reshapes how we understand our relationship with the divine. We're focusing on this, well, powerful, but maybe often overlooked part of a foundational text. It offers some pretty profound insights into how we navigate suffering. Have you ever, wrestled with that feeling? That maybe your actions, good or bad, don't really move the needle for God, or perhaps wondered why some prayers just seem to hit a ceiling, seemingly unanswered. Well, today we're going to explore exactly those questions through the surprising and sometimes pretty blunt words of an ancient sage named Elihu.
Exactly. And our goal here, our mission in this deep dive, is really to pull out the crucial insights from this ancient text, specifically Job chapter 35. We want to help grasp God's nature, maybe understand our own place in the world a bit better, and importantly, see how this understanding can practically encourage our obedience and, genuinely strengthen our faith right now, today.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Elihu. He comes into the story in the book of Job, and bam, he immediately confronts Job's whole perspective. Job was feeling totally wronged, confused by all his suffering, right? And he'd basically been saying things like, my righteousness is greater than God's. He was questioning the whole point of even trying to be cleansed from sin, asking, what profit do I get if I'm righteous? Why even bother?
It's a very raw human reaction, isn't it? When our efforts feel completely unseen or unrewarded. And that's precisely the core of Elihu's challenge. He asks, point blank, can human goodness or human wickedness actually affect God? His argument is pretty forceful. Human sin doesn't diminish God, not one bit. And our righteousness, it doesn't add anything to him either. He's already complete. He asks in verse 6, if thou sinnest, what doest thou against him? Or if thy transgressions be multiplied, what doest thou unto him?
Wow, direct.
Yeah, and then right after, verse 7, if thou be righteous, what givest thou him? Or what receiveth he of thine hand? Elihu is making it crystal clear. God is, utterly independent.
Okay, so that's a huge point. Our actions don't change God's actual essence. But here's where it gets interesting, right? Elihu connects this to us. While our behavior doesn't change God, he says it absolutely impacts other people.
Exactly.
He says, thy wickedness may hurt a man as thou art, and thy righteousness may profit the Son of Man. Verse 8, I think.
That's the one. It shifts the whole focus, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Away from some cosmic scorekeeping with God and onto our immediate human relationships and impact. And what's really insightful, I think, is Elihu's critique of how we often cry out when we're suffering. He notes, by reason of the multitude of oppressions, they make the oppressed to cry. They cry out by reason of the arm of the mighty. People cry out because they're hurting.
Sure, that makes sense.
But then he adds this sharp observation. Often people do this without sincerely seeking God in the process. He asks, but none saith, where's God my maker who giveth songs in the night? It's like we want the pain relief, but sometimes miss the deeper search for God himself.
So we cry out for help, but maybe not always for God.
That seems to be Elihu's point. And because of that, he makes this, pretty bold claim. He suggests God might not answer what he calls shallow or selfish praise. Why? Because of pride of evil men.
Pride. How does pride fit in?
Well, he follows up saying God will not hear vanity. Vanity here meaning empty prayers. Prayers that are just self-serving or maybe born from entitlement instead of real humility or a genuine desire for God.
Okay, so it's about the heart behind the prayer, not just the words.
Precisely. It suggests there's a condition to how God responds, and it's rooted in our heart's posture. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, Elihu basically wraps up by saying Job's complaints, in his view, are empty, rooted in a lack of understanding. He says Job speaks without knowledge.
Yeah, well, that's harsh.
But then he offers this lifeline. Despite Job feeling like he can't see God, Elihu insists, judgment is before him, therefore trust thou in him. It's this powerful call to trust God's justice, his timing, even when we feel completely in the dark and can't see what he's doing at all.
Okay, wow. So that's the ancient wisdom. Heavy stuff. What does this actually mean for us today? Practically speaking, how do these insights from Elihu, encourage real obedience and maybe strengthen your faith when things get tough?
Great question. I think the first big takeaway is stop treating God transactionally. This is huge for obedience because God is complete, wholly unchanged by us. Our obedience shouldn't be about earning points or trying to leverage God for blessings.
Right, not a quid pro quo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Real obedience, in Elihu suggests, flows from love, from reverence.
Yeah.
That totally transforms our motivation. It becomes about relationship, not reward.
Yeah.
Second, and this flows right from the prayer discussion, God sees the heart behind our cries. This really impacts how we pray and builds faith. God's listening deeper than just our words. He sees our motives. Are we genuinely seeking him or just frantically trying to get out of a jam?
That's challenging. It pushes for more authentic prayer.
Absolutely. It encourages, authentic God-centered prayer, moving beyond just panic buttons to a deeper seeking of God himself, even if the circumstances don't change immediately.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. We've probably all been there praying more about our agenda than really connecting. So when Elihu says our actions don't affect God, but they do affect others, how does that play out in daily life?
Well, it means that even though our behavior doesn't change God's essential nature, our actions have massive ripple effects on humanity, profound ones. Our righteousness, our sin. It really impacts our families, our friends, our community, society. It's not just about us and God in a vacuum.
So our choices matter hugely on a human level.
Immensely. Understanding this broadens our view of obedience. It's not just for personal gain. It's about contributing to the well-being or harm of others. It gives our choices real weight.
And what about those times, and we all have them, when God feels silent, when you're struggling and it just feels like nothing? What does Elihu offer there?
Yeah, that's such a critical point for strengthening faith, isn't it? Elihu's message here is basically, silence doesn't equal absence. He reminds us that God's delays aren't necessarily denials. Sometimes, maybe God holds back an immediate answer, not because he doesn't care, but actually to draw us deeper into trust.
Rather than just reinforcing a faith that only works when things go our way.
Exactly. Instead of reinforcing a shallow, conditional faith, this understanding, it builds resilience. It encourages a much deeper reliance on him, even when we don't see or hear what we expect. It's tough, but faith-building. And finally, Elihu gives us a caution. Watch how you speak when you're suffering. It's so easy, like Job, to let pain twist our view of God, right? To lead us to make, unwise accusations.
Saying things we might regret later or that aren't really true about God's character.
Precisely. Elihu's critique is a good reminder to sort of check our tone and our assumptions before we declare God unfair or absent. Honest lament, absolutely welcome. God can handle our questions, our pain, but humility is key too.
So bringing our hurt, but also bringing trust. Yes. That perspective helps maintain a healthy faith even in the hardest times. It encourages us to approach God with reverence and trust, which ultimately feeds back into an obedience that comes from understanding, not just duty.
So, wrapping this up, what's the big picture here? This whole deep dive into Job 35, into Elihu's words, it seems to tell us that our faith isn't some kind of, cosmic transaction with God.
Not at all.
It's more about a profound, dynamic relationship, one built on understanding his unchanging nature, trusting his timing, even when it's hard, and really offering our hearts genuinely in obedience and prayer.
That sums it up beautifully. The wisdom here really pushes us to examine our motives, doesn't it? Especially when we cry out to God in need. And to remember, crucially, that even when he seems silent, he is working, often working to draw us into a deeper, more trusting relationship with him. And that understanding that God doesn't need us, he's not dependent on us, yet he cares so deeply about our hearts and our actions. That's what truly strengthens faith. That's what encourages a heartfelt obedience day in and day out. It's amazing how this ancient wisdom can bring such surprising clarity to our lives today. Helps us navigate those big questions with maybe a bit more insight and humility. So here's a thought for you to carry with you from our deep dive today. How might really grasping God's independence from our actions, yet his deep, profound concern for our hearts, how might that change the way you pray this week? Or the way you approach obedience in your daily life?